Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jay and welcome to the channel, and welcome back to Avocet Point in Planet Zoo, a project where we're working on building this brand new sandbox park situated somewhere along the southern coast of the UK. In today's episode, we're doing a little bit of a reboot of Avocet Point, which is going to sound kind of silly because we started this like 3 weeks ago maybe, and I'm already like redoing everything. But basically, I started Avocet Point at a really kind of bad time for me to be building. I was in a huge creative rut. I really wasn't like able to put out my best work, and I wasn't happy with what I was putting out. I did put out that badger habitat, but really I wasn't super pleased with it. It was okay, it's fine, it's not horrible by any means. But I thought, you know what? I'm gonna take the time, I'm gonna clear out everything. I cleared out the entrance, everything that used to be here in Avocet Point. I cleared out the badger habitat, and I thought, okay, let's take this slow, let's put on a cool podcast or something, let's just enjoy building, you know, have a good time with the new pieces, really just take my time. You don't need to be building anything fancy, just build whatever comes to mind, and, you know, we'll see how it goes. So that's basically what I've been doing, and I thought, you know what, let's warm up my building again, you know, let's try to do something relatively simple and something fun. So I thought, let's experiment with this new restaurant mechanic that the game's added. So I just built a simple restaurant, and it is an incredibly simple restaurant. As you can see, it's literally just a box, but that's fine because sometimes, you know, these are nice simple structures that look good, but at the same time really get me back into the flow of building and get me excited to build again. And I am excited to build again. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Avocet Point develops, because I want to treat it a bit differently from my previous sandbox build, in the sense that in two ways really. In one way, I want to kind of maybe take a bit more effort to use the mechanics that are present in the game, because usually in sandbox I turn off all the mechanics, you know. I don't have welfare on, I don't have the guest needs on, anything like that. But this time maybe I'll keep some of the guest needs on, so we have to think a bit more about how we position guest amenities or facilities. As we go forward, we can also maybe look into animal welfare being turned on, so we have to think a bit more about how we lay out habitats and stuff. Of course, all that further down the line we'll figure it out, because we're still in such early stages here. But I think that's the one way I want to make it a bit more interesting, I guess. And the second way is that I want to keep in mind a budget for the zoo. Like, obviously we're not playing with actual money in the game, like I've turned that off so that we don't have to worry about it. But I want to like imagine the zoo as maybe somewhere that doesn't get as much funding as some of the bigger zoos and stuff like that, but they still do their best for the animals, and like how those compromises would be made and stuff like that. I got really inspired by kind of if you watch Geekism, he's recently come back now with some Planet Zoo videos, and I really love that he kind of works his Planet Zoo videos. He builds his habitats with that idea of like a budget in mind, with like a certain style of zoo, and I really like that. So I might give that a try here. So things are going to be maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit more like kind of just not necessarily like poor quality, but more so like we work with what we've got and we try our best to like make a habitat that really works for an animal. But it's not going to be like some high budget over the top habitat that has like, you know, a ridiculous amount of square feet for space, which of course would be great, but like I want to try and like, I don't know, explore the more like constraints that we can impose here. And I find that I get more creative when there are constraints put on me, so we'll see how that goes, and that could be quite fun. Anyways, our restaurant is coming quite nicely along, and soon we're going to move over to building our first habitat. I mean our second habitat, but technically our first habitat, because the badgers are still alive. They're in my trade center. I'm not gonna like just sell them off into the void. We will find a new space for the badger habitat. But instead, today we're going to be working on a European fallow deer habitat. These guys are pretty cool. It's really nice to have a deer species in the game now, because before this we had lots of kind of like, you know, not necessarily a deer species. What I mean is, it's nice to have a generic deer species, and this is not a slight on the fallow deer by any point. I'm not trying to roast this deer. It's more just that it's nice to have like something generic. Like we have things like the Doll sheep, all the antelope species, we have like the pronghorns, we have the moose. You know, all of them are really unique, but we don't but we have not got anything that's like good in comparison, I guess, to like have a more generic species of deer versus like a moose, which is like a huge deer-like animal. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think you kind of get the idea. Also, I'm trying to make more use of these screens this time, by the way. And I'm gonna make some like Avocet Point maps and logos and stuff in Photoshop and try and like put them in the game so that it looks quite nice. And I think it'll look pretty cool once everything's like lit up and we have all these screens across the park. I think that will look super cool. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Also making so much use of these new decals. I love them. Just putting them everywhere. And I probably use too much of them here. But I'm sure we'll not look too closely at that area. Anyways, here we are starting up the fallow deer habitat. One thing I really want to do as well is to get away from the harsh angles we were working with on October Lake. I love that angled approach and it made for a very neat looking part with October Lake, but here in Avocet Point I just want to try something else. I'm just going to go kind of higgledy-piggledy with like curves and like kind of work around the landscape that we have, because of course this is a pre-built map, so we do have like a landscape to work with, lots of hills and valleys and stuff. So I want to work with the path along that and see where we get, like how we move along with it essentially. Here we're building a little platform for viewing for the guests. The habitat itself is actually kind of small, and in hindsight I think I would have liked it to be bigger. So what I might do in a future episode is actually link the back of this habitat to like an open field and maybe link some other habitats there, so that like in some zoos they do this where they actually have an area where they can let their animals go for like more of a walk, I guess. Like there's some parts of I cannot remember which zoo this was, but they do sorry, my voice went for a second. They do this thing where they have like a big field and they take their animals for walks there, like elephants and stuff, so that they get some enrichment, they get some exercise, and they get to be out in the out of the habitat for a little bit. So I imagine we could do something like that with animals like this deer, because this habitat ended up being a bit small for my tastes. And of course I want to work with that budget idea again. So we're going to see a lot more like materials like you're seeing on screen now. A lot of wood and mesh, not as much like glass and metal and stuff like that. You know, slightly cheaper materials, but I'm going to try and maintain that aesthetic quality where it still looks good. So hopefully that comes across and hopefully we can maintain that. But we'll have to see, of course. It's a very long project and we've got a long way ahead of us, because like October Lake was meant to be a short project and that's lasted like however long, like way over a year or something like that. So we definitely have plenty of time to work with these things and see how it all goes. Lots of these faux rocks, again, these are something I probably won't go into too much. Actually it depends really. Like faux rocks aren't necessarily like the most expensive kind of thing to do in a zoo, I don't think. So we'll see how we can incorporate them. I don't want them to be like too present in the sense that we have these grand hyper naturalistic habitats that are really like quite over the top almost, because I just want to keep things quite tame with this one. Just some screens here, some smaller screens. I love the variety of screen sizes we have now. That is just so useful. But yeah, otherwise the habitat itself is going to be pretty simple. Slightly lowered area here, a lot of dirt, a lot of grass. It's going to be very basic. I'm going to try and use some actual fencing as well, which I almost never use. More rocks along the sides and stuff, and then towards the back we're going to build a shelter. But in the middle we're not going to do too much. There'll be a little rock formation, and then we're going to have some bushes and things like that. Here I'm just kind of taking some inspiration from the pre-built shelters, because I want to make a really simple shelter here. Nothing extravagant or at all, but something that looks like, you know, it looks nice, but it's also, you can tell it's very utilitarian for the animals. Like this is easy to clean, but it's also comfortable for the animals to an extent. For a deer, a little stable thing like this I think looks pretty nice. Again, lots of mesh. Gosh, the mesh pieces in the game are just the best. Adding in a little keeper entrance. I don't actually put in a keeper building behind this, which I probably will in the future. I love having little keeper buildings just right next to whatever habitat I'm building, because it just works really well, I think. Like, it kind of feels more realistic, and it gives the implied existence of like, what am I trying to say? it kind of implies the existence of like an interior space that the animals can go into without there actually having to be one. So I quite like that idea as well. So maybe we'll do more of that, like implied interior habitat spaces. I think that'd be cool. Just making a little door over there for the staff to enter. And again, it's so weird building with the path not on an angle. I feel so out of place doing it. Here I was trying to just come up with some pillars that maybe would fit in, but couldn't think of anything that would work super well. I don't know if I actually ended up keeping a pillar there. I might have. I cannot. Yeah, I think I just used that like on its own. Not super happy with how that looks. We'll have to see whether I change that in the future. But otherwise, pretty okay with the fencing. I might change that stone fencing to the brick fencing now that I think about it, because as cool as the stone fencing is, having that much of it doesn't necessarily seem super like realistic, I guess. Here I'm just putting some rocks in the middle over here, just a few tiny rock formations to break up the space a little bit. Putting in a nice simple roof on top of this shelter as well. Just a little very simple slanted roof, nothing fancy at all. Though it does get tricky because I try to like make it overhang slightly, so you have to duplicate it and stuff, and then of course just filling out the insides here to make sure that it's all covered. But yeah, not much to do now, just adding in some foliage in a second. Lots of brambles, dog rose bushes, very much the standard temperate foliage, but it looks really, really good. I'm obsessed with the periwinkle leaves, by the way. So nice, and they cover a lot of space like really quickly, and they look so good. So highly recommend the periwinkle leaves. But yeah, that's it for today's episode. I hope you're all doing well. Again, I apologize there haven't been an awful lot of videos. I'm just really swamped with work at the moment. But I do try and make videos when I can. There should be a Jurassic World Evolution video out later this week. I've already filmed a lot of these. It's finding time to do the voiceover and just putting the video together that I just have been really swamped lately. But I'll get it done as soon as I can. Either way, I hope you're all well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, this little burp there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Do leave a like down below if you did like it. Do leave a comment. Let me know what you want to see next in Avocet Point. And of course, what you want to see in October Lake as we finish up that park in the near future. With that all being said, thanks so much for watching. Thanks as always for all your support. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!